So just to let you know that it is, and it'll be available to you within 48 hours after we finish the training. So again, good morning, everyone. My name is Gina Blankenship. I am a trainer and consultant for Hayes Software. I'm very familiar with the school district's environment, as I was a director of technology for 20 years before I retired last April. And since then, I've been working for Hayes as a trainer in TIPWeb and also in their Get Help program. So what we're going to do today is go through the process of audits. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is the audit to begin with. Why is it that we audit? We're just going to kind of do a quick overview of how that audit is going to look. And we're going to look specifically at your audit, what the screens are going to look like in TIPWeb, what you're going to be looking for, and give you the opportunity to ask questions to Emily. And so Emily is managing the audit in your district, and she's going to be able to answer some specific questions. And then I can answer those generic questions that just pertain to the way the application works. So between the two of us, I think we can get you guys ready for this upcoming audit. So really, first thing we need to know with audits is, why do we do audits? And really, it depends on the district view and how the district looks at your inventory and how important it is. But basically, an audit is an official inspection of your assets, right? So we use the term audit to describe a process of people that are exploring a site, locating assets, and then scanning identifiers into TIPWeb to basically locate those assets and to verify that they actually are here. We also use audits to verify an established list of assets. So here we think we have X number of Chromebooks in the district, and that audit is going to verify that, yes, we do actually have X number of Chromebooks in the district. And then the other reason is to capture asset location. So we use audits in TIPWeb. We can use them to actually get things recorded in the right place so that we can kind of clean up the database, make sure things are right, and move on. So kind of depending on where you're coming at with your TIPWeb installation. The purpose of your audit this time around is to verify that your students' Chromebooks are in the hands of the students that we think that they are, and that we know exactly where those Chromebooks are. So we're going to be focusing on those specifically. But audits in TIPWeb can include anything in your inventory. So there are three parts to an audit. We'll go through the preparation part, and a big piece of that part of an audit is done at the district level, and then it kind of spreads out to the site level. So some of the preparation for your audit has been going on for a while, and so now what we're doing is we're going to share that information with you and then allow you to prepare your sites for that audit as well, so that everybody's kind of working together to make sure that it happens. So during preparation, we talk about the audit process itself.
Is now joining.
So when we are finished with preparing for the audit, then we actually go do the audit, right? So that's where we are actually scanning items and verifying that they are where they're at. And then the last part of the audit is reconciling the information. Because during the scanning process, we're going to find items that either we didn't know about, or maybe we thought they were with student named John, and we actually found them with student named Charlie. So we have to go back and reconcile that information and make sure that our database is showing the actual truth of what's going on. So those are the three parts of the audit. Right now we're in the preparation stage. We're going to move into the audit process itself in January. So during preparation, what we want to talk about is audits are a big deal. They're important. When we're doing audit, we're verifying to a lot of different funding sources in the district that we're actually using the funding for what we said we were using it for. It backs us up on all types of federal programs and those sorts of things. Plus it gives the superintendent, the principals and so on, things to fall back on to do budgeting and those sorts of things. So audits are a big deal. We want to make sure that everybody knows that it's an important thing, and we're going to get a lot of value out of getting this audit done, as long as everybody realizes that that's what's going to happen. So you need a team. Now your team at your site level may be small, but they've got a important job ahead of them. So we need to just kind of get together and take this audit on for what it is. So your team at the site level is going to include a principal. It's going to include your scanners, and then Emily noted the site engineers are there for you. And as we go through this, you'll kind of see what your team might look like. And some of those players may only be people you talk to, and some of those players might be people that actually do something. So then we talk about the scope of the audit. So that basically means, what are we going to audit? We're going to talk about what resources we have to actually get that audit done. We're going to talk about who our stakeholders are. So who is this important to, and who do we need to communicate during the audit? And then our communication plan as well. So how are we going to communicate with everybody during the audit? So this one slide right here kind of wraps it all up in a pretty little bow, and we're going to prepare through strategic planning to get our audit done. We're going to make sure that we know what we're auditing, we know what resources we have to do the audit, we know who's going to be needing to know what and how we're going to talk to them. So I'm going to pause right now just to give us a chance to look, see if there's any questions at all. Anybody want to throw a question into the chat box? Questions, comments, thoughts at this point that we need to answer? And I'll just give a minute, because I know we have a big group, so I want everybody to, this is your first, oops, I'm supposed to be interacting here, break, so.
Looks like we're good for now.
Okay. Also, if anybody, if my sound or anything starts getting a little weird, please let me know sooner rather than later, and shoot something into the chat. So there is one question there, Emily, will the focus only be on Chromebooks? And yes, this audit is going to focus on your Chromebooks. And it's a great segue into our next slide as well, because our next slide is going to start talking about our scope of work. So what is your scope of work going to be? What products will be audited? It's the first question we ask on any audit, is what is it that we're going to audit? So in your case, for the audit that's coming up in January, we're going to audit Chromebooks that are issued to students or placed in rooms. So we have storage rooms, or maybe the media center has shelves with Chromebooks on them, or wherever we think a Chromebook might be, we're going to audit. That might be a little bit different for each site, but when we create the audit, it's going to identify the rooms that we think these items are in, and so those will be available for you to do the audit in. So the next question is where? Where is this audit going to take place? We have a pretty large district, and the audit itself for Chromebooks, in this case, is going to be 40 sites. So we have the 10 high schools, 10 middle schools, and 20 elementary schools. Within those sites, we're going to be auditing rooms and students. So remember, Chromebooks that are issued to rooms or students. And then when will this audit take place? So that's a big question, right? When are we gonna get this done? And so this is a place where we might end up bringing Emily in for some conversation. We're going to open the audit on January the 6th, and that first run closes on January 24th. And maybe, Emily, this would be a great time for you to talk just a little bit about what your thoughts are for that time frame.
Okay, so for the majority of the schools that received the email, the audit's going to open up January 6th and close on January 24th. And for high schools,
is now exiting.
For high schools and Charlotte Mecklenburg Academy, the audit's going to be shifted to open January 27th, and it closes February 14th, and that's because you guys are testing so much. So there'll be two separate audits. Is that clear for everyone? Does everyone understand that? See a question if Chromebooks are assigned to a student for take home. Do the Chromebooks have to be on campus on the district audit? Yes, you need to be able to physically scan that tag, verify that the correct student has the Chromebook. So yes, it needs to be in their possession at the site, and you need to physically scan that tag. The audit can be, yes, it can be completed over several days. You have a window of almost 3 weeks, not quite. So you have plenty of time to do it. And as Gina goes through the process, you'll see, you'll be able to see what you've scanned and what you haven't scanned. So it's not like you're guessing on which room you haven't hit or which students that you're missing. If you don't have a scanner, what school is this from? What school are you from that doesn't have a scanner?
That share Chromebook. Share Chromebooks.
Winterfield. I'll get in touch with you after the webinar closes, okay? Extra Chromebooks loaned us for the time we're scanning? Yes, send me an email, please, and let me know what your thinking is. Plus, remember on the information that I sent you yesterday, you can request the help from your engineer. So that would be an extra set of hands to scan as well. Melody, on the request help, it's on the original email I believe I sent out, but you need to send an email to Danielle Gary, and you can request help from your engineer with her.
Okay, Emily, you want me to read the questions to you as they come?
I can see. I have a first grade
Okay.
class. Does that share Chromebook? Should I collect them and place them back in the Chromebook cart? For elementary, as long as you're not testing, it doesn't take very long. If they're using them, you can just quickly grab it and scan it really fast. I wouldn't worry about collecting it and putting it in a cart. I think you can just go through a classroom, just work it out with your teacher and say, hey, can I have 5 minutes when I can walk into your classroom and just scan these Chromebooks? I have 2 classes with no access assets. So you need to go ahead and put a ticket in, a Sharewell ticket, to so your engineer can come out and tag those Chromebooks so we can get those added. The audit does not include iPads. It's only for Chromebooks. CTE Chromebooks are included in the audit. I don't have a way of removing. Gina, there's no way to remove a funding source from the audit, is there?
There might be. Yeah, well, we'll take a look at that. So there's a possibility if you just want to leave one out, you just have to go in and select all the other funding sources and just not that one, I think.
Okay. If not, Meg, I was planning on go ahead and scanning those anyway, since we're doing Chromebooks. It doesn't hurt. And typically those don't go home, and there should be in the classroom. So that should be an easy audit for those. Yes, I would include the after school because those are Chromebooks as well. And like I said, those should be in a centralized location. So I would go ahead and scan those as well. These are excellent questions, guys. Thank you. The after-school Chromebooks, yes, are assigned to your site. And they'll be listed. If you were to look at Chromebooks, they have a tag beginning with ASE. And CTE should begin with CE. CE. Can't read all his questions. Okay, Brandon, let's see. Planning to come a certain day. My understanding was that a team was coming out to school and we were tagging along. So you can request help from your engineer to help. And also, Uwe and Jim and I will be picking out 10 schools that we're going to come out and kind of audit. Audit's a terrible word. Check out, see if we can support. So I'll let you know if you're one of those schools. Okay, Gina, I think we can move on for now.
Okay, thanks everyone. Those questions are excellent. Okay, so just a quick overview of your scope of work. So Chromebooks that are issued to students are placed in rooms, and for this audit, we're going to just include all funding sources at this point. The sites are going to be the 10 high schools, middle schools, and 20 elementary schools, rooms and students in that location. And then the audit's going to open January 6th and close January 24th for the first round. So when we talk about communication and how we're going to let everyone in the district and at each site know what's happening. The first thing that we have to do is identify who the stakeholders are. So who matters in the situation. And so we're looking at this from your site's point of view. Who matters in your site to know about this audit? Well, principals, right? Principals need to know what's happening in their building. Staff and students are all going to be stakeholders in your situation, because you're doing Chromebooks that are issued out to students, and they could be anywhere. They could take them home or they could be on site. You need to let those students know that the audit is happening, and it's going to be up to them to make sure to bring their devices to school at a certain time. So communication becomes very important in this process. Some of the communication will come from Emily, and you'll be able to just forward her emails out to your stakeholders. And some of the information needs to come from within your building using the best possible method of communication in your building. So what works best for your building? You guys are right there, and you know, is it an announcement on the intercom system? Is it emails? Is it something through Canvas, an announcement for when your staff gets on Canvas? Or is it a combination of these things that work for you? How are you going to get to students? Maybe are you going to send an email home to parents saying, hey, we're doing an audit. Please help us make sure that your student brings their Chromebook to school with them on this day or during this time frame, so that you can get it best. Once you have that plan lined out for your building, like, you know, when are you going to scan what? Am I going to go to these rooms this set of days, or am I going to try to get students to come to me on this time frame? It's all kind of be put together in your plan as you're thinking about it. But then once you have it set, you need to start communicating as much as possible. So you have those mass emails that go out, say, hey, we're doing this, and then, hey, we're going to do it now, or we're going to do it during this week, or we're going to do it during these 2 days. And this is what we need from you in order to make that successful. So what do they need to know? They need to know what's happening. We're having an audit of Chromebooks. When is it happening? Well, we're going to start in January, and these are the kind of what we think we need in order to get it to happen well. And where is it going to happen? Well, I want students to come to the media center so we can scan them, you know, by class. Or I'm going to come into your classroom. So what works best for you as the auditor, as well as what works best for teachers in their classroom, is we want to be as small of a disruption as possible. We still need to get our work done. So think about what that means to your building, and how you might get through your building with the least amount of distraction. So one of those questions about, you know, the Chromebooks are really kind of located in the room. So then that might be least disruptive for you to go to the room and scan the Chromebooks, because it only takes a minute. Or maybe you're a high school and the students are scattered, and it would be quicker just to bring them through a certain way. So it's just going to depend on your site as you kind of go through and think about this process. And then how are we going to do it? Are we going to, have students come to us? Are we going to come to you? How does that work? And then when do they need to know? They need to know everything that you know as you know it. So this needs to happen. This communication process happens. It probably should start before you leave on your Christmas break. Just say, hey, heads up, we're going to be doing an audit in January. We're going to let you know what that means a little bit more in January, but here's what we know so far. We're going to need to see every Chromebook from every student, so start to think about that. So it's always good to share the information. Remember that emails that are too long tend to not get read all the way through. So you kind of use your knowledge of that to share what you can without getting too lengthy, because sometimes people don't read the whole thing, right? So once you have that communication plan in place, then you have to start to kind of pull your stuff together. So sorry. I rolled my mouse and things just went crazy. Here we go. So we're going to start to compile our resources. So who do we have? We have people. So we have the person at the site that is kind of that audit management person at the site. And those are you guys that are on this meeting right now. Then we have the site engineer. And we said, hey, you can ask the site engineer to help you out. So what kind of devices do you have as resources? We need scanners. We need laptops. We might even need to have the mobile app on our phones to help us in some situations. So you're going to get special instructions on how to deal with items that don't have tags. So that question's already come up and you're already starting to think about it. And that's wonderful, because it's better to have the tag in place before the audit happens, but you're going to have some items that you run into during the audit. We'll talk about how you're going to deal with those. And then assets that are not found in TIPWeb. So you run into something, you scan it, and the system tells you, I don't know anything about that item. So how are you supposed to deal with that? And then assets that are found with the incorrect student. So I thought John had this asset, but turns out Charlie had this asset. Now what do I do about that? And then you've got these little things over here that matter. Do you have the keys? Are carts locked? Can you get to things? Are rooms locked? How are you going to get to areas that you need to scan during this audit? So how are you going to access them? Do I need a ladder to get to anything? Of course, these are Chromebooks, so in your situation, probably not. But if you're doing an audit that includes things that are mounted on the ceiling, sometimes you need ladders. So you just kind of want to think about those types of resources that you might need in place. And I want to take another little question break right here, just to make sure that we're answering these questions. I see Emily has been answering some questions along the way. A lot of questions along the way.
So with that special instructions that Gina just mentioned on that email that I sent you with a little cheat sheet for the audit, at the bottom is a template that's it's already created for you, and it'll force you to make a copy, and you just add your site name to the beginning, and that's where you're going to add all of your exceptions that she just talked about and we'll be talking about in a few more minutes.
So I'm kind of looking at the questions, Emily, and the question that Brandon had about logging into multiple, computers with one ID. My suggestion and best practice for that would actually be to create a user ID for those people that are going to help you scan, even if it's just a temporary ID. so that you're not scanning under your name, that others are not scanning under your name, and we can kind of see what happens there. You will, in some cases, need to be in the audit, and then also maybe looking up things in the live version of TIPWeb. So an audit kind of technically takes a picture of the database, and then you work on that picture during the audit, and you might need to look up something else. So there may be a reason to maybe use your mobile app, or have another machine that you're logged in where you're not in the audit. You're just kind of looking things up. It kind of goes as it goes there. So we're going to take this little moment for some other questions about the overall idea, and then we're going to jump into some specific scenarios in your situation, and then we're going to move into the application itself so you'll see what it looks like. So that question there from Mint Hill Middle, this session is recorded and it'll be available. So that would be your opportunity to have some extra training. And then Emily can also do some there for you as well. And you'll see that even if your scanners have not been in TIPWeb IT, they'll be okay. They'll be able to help you scan without having a lot of, full application training. Brendan, that's a question for Emily, I believe. Okay, so I'm going to let's see, how will we know if there are students that we missed during the audit? Do we need to have class rosters? You'll see, Jeremy, how that's going to work. The system does have a list of students that we think have Chromebooks issued to them. So you should be able to see what's missing and then kind of work your way back from there. You should not need class rosters, at least not in the beginning. You guys are thinking about this? That's good. We've got a lot of questions going on. I'm going to start to go ahead into the next screen so that we can start talking about some scenarios that you may run into. Oh, hopefully my little action's gonna go in the right way here. Okay, so what happens if I'm scanning, and you guys are gonna see this in the application when I'm done. So this is like a review, and we're gonna go back and actually see what this looks like in the audit so that you'll be able to see an actual example. So there's some scenarios that can happen during your audit. So when I'm scanning, and if I scan a tag that is not in TIPWeb at all, you're gonna get a message that says tag not found. So what are you going to do if that happens during your audit? First off, you're going to try searching TIPWeb IT for the serial number. So this is one of those situations where you might want to use your app on your phone or another machine that has TIPWeb running that's not in the audit at this moment, just to see if you can find this item on its serial number in the system. Because maybe somewhere along the line that the old tag fell off, somebody put a new tag and it didn't get recorded in the system, right? But the device itself is there. So we might look and just make sure it's not there. If you cannot find that device anywhere in the system, then there's a spreadsheet that Emily is sharing with everyone, and you will go into that spreadsheet and record the tag number, the serial number, and the location of that item, along with its description. So you scan a Chromebook and it's just not in TIPWeb IT at all, you're just gonna say here in that spreadsheet, tag number 10, serial number ABC, description, you know, Dell Chromebook, and location is the student ID number, or it's in room 10. And then you'll move on to the next asset. So another scenario you may run into is that there's no tag label on an asset. So this is going to be very similar to having that tag not found. The first thing you're going to need to do is see if you can find that asset in TIPWeb IT by searching with the serial number. And then you're going to take the same action again and input the information into that spreadsheet for this particular asset. Emily, do you want them to put an asset tag on that, or you're going to deal with that during the reconciliation?
I'm going to deal with it during the reconciliation. So if they find a device that does not have a tag, there's a column on that spreadsheet that I provided for them for those. So they'll just need to provide the serial number and the model of the Chromebook. If they look up the serial number and happen to find the old tag that was originally on there, if they could put that in there, and that's not a required field, but it'd be nice to have. But yeah, we'll handle those as they come up with between myself and the engineer.
Okay. Okay, so the next two scenarios that we deal with are the tag is not part of an audit. So basically what happens when we set the audit up in TIPWeb, we're going to say we're auditing Chromebooks that are in the hands of students or been issued to a room, right? So if for some reason you have an asset that the system does not identify as a Chromebook, sometimes that could happen. It gets put in the system as a laptop instead of a Chromebook. Then you may get this error message that says this tag is not part of this audit. Basically, TIPWeb doesn't recognize it as a Chromebook. So your first question is this a Chromebook? And if it is, then you will record the information in that spreadsheet. If it's not, you're just going to set aside and move on, because it is not part of the audit if it's not a Chromebook. So then we have a scenario that says you get a return that says tag verified. That's, woohoo, this is what we want, right? Tag verified is like success magnified. And so we're just going to move on to the next tag. So the more of those tag verified that we get, the better our audit is. That basically means TIPWeb thought this Chromebook was in room 10 and you just proved to me it was. Let's move on. So we may get a system message that says, hey, this tag has already been entered. My slide. That's fine. You just move on, right? So we have multiple scanners. We have multiple people scanning into this audit. So somebody else already scanned that tag. That's all that means. And you can just move on. So the next scenarios are about scanning for students. So we're going to see some different things when we start to scan those Chromebooks that are assigned to students. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you a better view of this, but we're going to talk about, okay, the student name matches what the system says it matches. Great. That's going to be verified. The student name is incorrect and the student should not have the device. What are we going to do? The student name is incorrect and the student should have the device. What do we do? So in the third case there, maybe the student that was recorded as having that device actually left the district and that device came back in and got reissued and it just didn't get recorded in the system. So we just are going to allow that student to keep it. So what you're going to see in the application is a screen that looks like this guy right here. So we just scanned a tag T51896 and the system came up and said, hey, this tag is marked as missing on this audit. That's normal. Every single item in the audit is going to be marked as missing until you scan it. So don't freak out. That doesn't mean it's gone. It just means the audit has it in a status that it says it hasn't been scanned yet. It says this tag is expected to be in the hands of this student. You'll have the student name. So if the student is correct, that's great. We're going to click Verify Tag. And we're going to move on to the next student. If the student name is not correct, and we need to retrieve the device from the student. So that's that, hey, you're not supposed to have this device. We're going to take it away from you. Then you're going to click Mark Tag as misplaced. And what happens then is the system is just going to put it in the room. So say I'm in the library and the media center scanning, it's going to put that Chromebook in the room if I click on Mark Tag as misplaced. So then student is not correct, but it's okay that the student has the device. Then what we want to do is transfer that device to the correct student. And we're going to do that by clicking Update Tag Location. And there's going to be a couple other screens that allow you to identify who the new student is. And we're going to see that as I go through this particular scenario in the application itself. So we're going to look at all these scenarios again in the actual application. This will give you the opportunity then to ask more questions at that point as well. But if you have anything now, just go ahead and throw it into the chat. Okay, so after the scanning is complete, we get onto the reconciliation piece. And before you are finished on your site, somebody at the site, that's you guys, somebody at the site are going to need to make sure that every room has been scanned, make sure that every student that can be reached has been, right? So somebody's going to look at that and go, hey, we're done with our audit. We've done everything we can. And we're going to go ahead and show you how to do that here in just a minute. Then we're just going to review one more time what's left, and then you're going to approve the audit. So there are some other questions coming in that are very specific to your district. I'm going to let Emily answer those questions in the chat. So if you are paying attention to the chat, there's going to be some good information in there that somebody may be asking that question that you need to ask, that you need the answer to as well. I think Melody's question, I'm going to go ahead and kind of address that a little bit here. So she's saying that we're partial take home. What happens if the student doesn't bring their Chromebook by the end of the audit date? Now that's something that your site needs to work on communication wise, and something that might happen during that whole entire process of the audit. You kind of keep track of what's going on and who you're still missing, and you'll be able to get a hold of those students. And then you need to do everything you possibly can to get that before the end of the audit. But if you don't, then it can be taken care of during the reconciliation process. And then Chromebooks. Do Chromebooks need to be associated with the correct room in Hayes? Your audit will go much better if they are. So if your Chromebooks are associated with rooms and not students, if it's correct before the audit gets started, then your audit will be much cleaner. But they don't have to be in order for you to do the audit. I can't see who answered this question, who asked this question, but what if a student has a Chromebook, but it was missed in the initial scanning? No worries, you have a 3-week window. You can scan that during that window. Anytime the student does come in and you find it and scan it, if you miss the window, then it will have to be dealt with kind of as a one-off situation during the reconciliation process. You'll be able to say, hey, I found this, and they'll be able to take action during the reconciliation. But you need to do everything you possibly can to find these students, and you'll be able to see how that works.
Susie, for the homebound services, you probably, I don't know how many you have, but what I would do is I would just verify however you can with the teacher or the person in charge of the student records. I would just make sure that what you have shown in Hayes matches, because you can always enter the tag manually. You don't have to scan that physical tag. So we could make an exception for homebound students.
One thing we used to do on that also, Emily, is we would just see if we could get the parent to answer an email saying, hey, we're doing an audit. Can you send us the tag number on that device that your student has? And then you don't give them the number, and they send it back to you. That's as good as scanning it, because they have to read it right there on the device, if you can get them to answer. I'm going to let Emily deal with some of these questions. I think, Emily, it's a good idea for you to go ahead and just answer them.
Because they're
So Quell Hollow, your question about if we receive them during the audit, can we scan them? Yes, you'd want to. So if that tech tab comes back during the audit and they've been repaired and you don't get a transfer because they're not replaced with anything, please go ahead and scan them for the audit. And for the scanners, please just email me if you need additional scanners. Remember, your media center also has Follett scanners, and those work as well. They'll work for the audit as well. But just email me and let me know.
Okay, so I can tell by the questions you guys are really thinking about this audit. This is great. This is great. These are good questions. So you're going to make every single effort you possibly can to scan every device that you can during your 3-week window. That should be your goal, to get the best percentage of items scanned in your site. It's going to make your life a lot easier after the fact and during the audit reconciliation. And you have to think about what happens at the district level at the next point. So after you have made sure that you scanned everything you possibly can and you've run down every student you can, and I'm not talking about with the Zamboni. I'm just talking about finding that student and scanning their device. Then you can approve the audit at your site. When you approve the audit at your site, you're saying to Emily that, hey, we are done. We have scanned everything. We've done everything we can to find when we're just done. We've done it all. So then the audit reconciliation process happens at that point, and that kind of goes back to Emily. So remember, there are 40 sites dealing with in just this audit, and so all of that reconciliation comes back to her level. So everything you can do at your site will make it just so much easier. The more you can find, the better. So that audit reconciliation happens at the district level, and she's definitely going to need your help, because she's going to come back and say, okay, we had all these items that were missing during your scan. What do you know about these items that were missing? Why do you think they were missing? Because we have to answer the question for every single asset that was not scanned about where it is and what we think happened. And some of those you're going to find after the fact, and you might come back and go, you know what, we missed this room altogether. I don't know how we did it, but we did, and here's the assets that are in the room, and she'll be able to go in and deal with those.
So Quell Hollow, what about new students? Well, if you have a new student that comes in, you've either already scanned that device because it's part of your inventory, or if you haven't, then you can go ahead and issue it, and then you can scan it, and that way it's just issued to a student. So either way, you should have that covered. Do we stop tickets during the audit? So ideally, it'd be nice if you didn't have to send things during the depot during this time, but it's according to how quickly you get your audit done. But there is a column that has depot on there that will address if you want to add those to the column, if you just in dire need to send those devices off to the depot while we're doing the audit, just add those to that column. And Jim and Uwe and I will take a look at those and we'll take care of those for you.
Okay, so reconciliation, the sooner the better. We need to make sure that the whole audit process is completed all the way through. So your plan, and that's what we're talking about right now, is your plan to go out there. This is a living document, so you're going to kind of put things together in your mind, and you're going to kind of go out and see what you think that's going to be. And exploring really in this situation is really more about just talking things out, maybe calling Emily, saying, what do you think about this? Working through things and then adjusting and then going back around. This is the way it works. The first time that you do this, it's going to feel like a big event, but you'll get better at it, and these audits will go smoother and smoother every time. Just know that the cleaner your database is, the better your audit goes. And just know upfront that it can be a little stressful, but it's going to work out in the end. So don't make yourself sick over it. Just kind of take a deep breath and start working on the audit itself, and you'll learn as you go that it's really not as hard as it might sound. And it sounds big. It even sounds big to me because you're a big district, but that's the way it kind of goes sometimes. So what I'm going to do is go out of this document that we're just doing presentation for here and go into the application itself. And so maybe Emily, you can just verify for me that you do see the change on my screen. Do you see that I'm logging into TIPWeb IT?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So what we're going to do, oh, there we go, at this point is actually go through the process of an audit, just so you see what it looks like and what it's going to look like in the system itself. And then we can go through each one of those scenarios as well that we talked about earlier, and how you're going to deal with the different pieces and parts of the audit. So I have already gone in and initialized an audit for our campus called Learning Campus that's in our training database. So I'm going to go ahead and move to that campus location in TIPWeb now. I'm going to Learning Campus. And up here on the navigation bar, we have audits. So we're going to click on View Site Audits. When I fly over audits, and that drop down comes up. So View Site Audits. I can also go to Open Audits. That was on the dashboard screen to get here. So here's the audit I created. I call it 2019-2020 Phase 1 Chromebook Audit, which is what I believe Emily is going to use, something very close to that. So you'll be looking for that audit, and it probably will be the only audit on your list. So when you find this audit, you're going to highlight just by flying over it and just click on that mark. And you're going to see this window that pops up. So this is our audit detail window, and we can see here the name of the audit. The audit is for rooms and students, and that one product type is selected. And when I fly over that, it pops up a little window that shows me what that product type is. So this particular audit, again, is for Chromebooks that are either located in a room or issued to a student. I'll see the date that is created and the date that it's due as well. I didn't put a due date on this particular audit, but yours will have a due date. So I can see that there are 3,259 items in my audit. I have not scanned any of those. So basically there's a record created for every room and every student. So these particular counts right here are for rooms and students, not necessarily for devices. Okay, so looking at this grid, what I get first is a list of rooms. After the rooms, you'll see individual students marked. I'm hearing an echo. Let me get somebody unmuted. Okay, so this grid is going to show us where we still need to scan. You can see the location and the status of that location. So everything, let me bring that back up. Every location is going to be in one of these 4 statuses as you work through. So the audit's created, but scanning hasn't started. That's new. In progress means that I have started scanning in that location. Scan complete would mean that I finished scanning that location, and then closed means that all those tags can now be reconciled. So as we look at this grid, we can start to see a status of our scan. So as our audit totals down here, you can see that the inventory column, this tells us how many items were actually in that location. So all these first ones here, all these first rooms, there were no Chromebooks expected to be there. Now, does that necessarily mean that there are no Chromebooks in those rooms? It does not really mean that. It just means that the system didn't have anything as being assigned there. So sometimes things get moved and it doesn't happen in the system. That doesn't mean nothing is in these rooms. It just means that according to TIPWeb IT, there wasn't anything recorded there when we started the audit. So we have a total of 69 down here on our audit totals of inventory, and then the verified column would be those items that were actually scanned in the location that they were expected to be scanned in. So you'll start to see these numbers change as we scan items into the audit. So our goal is to have 69 inventory and 69 verified. That's probably not going to happen, but hopefully the percentage will be high on the verified. So if something is listed as found, that works directly in with this column called misplaced. So basically, say I'm in room 1000 and I scan a tag, number 10, but the system thought that number 10 was somewhere else. It's going to add it to this room as being misplaced. So it doesn't mean I can't find it. It just means that it's not in the place that we thought it was in. So in room 1000, that item number 10 is going to be in the misplaced column, but in the room that was expected to be, it's going to be in the found column. So every time you have something misplaced, it's going to show up as found somewhere else, because it's going to say, well, it's supposed to be in number 10. So when you go into that room and start scanning, know that it's not there because we found it over somewhere else. And that concept is a little bit confusing at first, so you start actually scanning things and then you go, oh yeah, I get it. So then the missing column you'll see right now that matches our inventory is because when we created the audit, it basically took every single asset, right, in the system and made it in a status of missing for the purpose of the audit until we scan it. Now I can manipulate this grid just like I can manipulate any spreadsheet. So I can take them and put them in sorted by location, which right now they are already sorted by location. So when I click it again, it flips them back around the other way. So you can see a location for students here in this situation. I can sort by statuses. So here are my statuses. Right now I'm looking at all of them, but I can just say, I just want to see those that are in closed status, which is going to return me nothing at this point. Excuse me. So when was the last date that anybody changed anything in this room for this audit? I can put it in order by inventory. So all these rooms here, there was nothing. If I start to organize this by inventory, I see some rooms will stand out. See, here's my areas that actually have things in them. There's room 507. That's my big room. I think you guys are probably going to be very similar to this where Chromebooks are concerned. Excuse me for just a second. Sorry about that. Are you okay on answering those questions, Emily, or do I need to take a little break? Do you want to address any of those?
I'm good. I think I'm catching up.
Okay. And those of you that are on, you probably want to watch that chat so that those questions that are being answered, they may be very similar to a question that you have as well. Okay, so you're going to probably be very similar to this layout here where you have one room where most of the Chromebooks are stored. So maybe that's your media center. So you'll see that your media center room has the bulk of the inventory in it, and that's just because they're, you know, stored there. And then you start to see the students that have been issued these. So as we scan items, you're going to start to see some changes in these numbers. So what you're gonna do first is address that big room. So these are for those people that are wanting to start with the student scanning, and this is really going to be your best address, your best process when you're doing those one-to-one devices that are assigned to students. So you'll go to that room, say that's the media center, and what you're going to do is hit this little green pencil in order to actually kind of enter that room and start scanning items. So remember that if you're doing student devices, that the quickest way for you to do that is to go to the room where you would store those devices if it was not in the student's hands. And when we click on edit, we get this window that pops up and it's for that room. So this is room 507 in our example. It's a technology storage room. I am expecting 42 items to be in this particular room. I have so far not scanned any of them, and neither have any of them been found somewhere else. I also have not found anything in this room that was not expected to be in this room. So basically, I have not started scanning. So I'm just going to put my cursor in the enter tag, and I'm going to start to scan items. So what we want to see is that the verified answer. So if I were to scan an item right now that is in room 507 and I hit enter, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to back out of this. I did not want that to be my first example. Sorry. Okay, let's try this again. So if I have a tag that is actually stored in the room, because that's where I'm at. When I find that tag, this is what I'm going to get. This is a successful thing. Tag is verified. It gives me the opportunity to record a condition since I have it in front of my hands. I can do that or not. It's optional. So if you guys are recording conditions, you can use this opportunity to do that. But notice I've got a verified tag, and see my grid for this room has changed. So I have 42 pieces of inventory, a verified one. I'm down to 41 missing. So that's what we're after. We want to verify as many tags as possible. So we're in room at this point. We're in the room. So anything stored in the room is probably going to be verified. So there may be that situation. We talked about our scenarios earlier, right? Where we had different scenarios based on how we were scanning. So if we happen to scan a tag, and notice I'm typing these in, so I don't have a scanner. It works the same way either way. If I do a tag that's not in the system, remember we said tag not found or tag not system, then there's that question here. We talked about what you were going to do. Then you're going to try to search for that tag in TIPWeb IT with the serial number. And this is our example of maybe having another computer or having your phone with the app in it, so you could do that search real quickly. Because you would do it in this window up here right above our audit, but you cannot do it in the same function. You cannot do it in the audit itself. And then you're going to record the information that you do find about that tag in that spreadsheet that Emily sends, and you're going to move on to the next item. So what if we scan a tag that is not part of the audit? So I scanned this tag number and I got a message, hey, this is not part of the audit. So we talked about that scenario and what would you do in the case of that happening. So the first thing that you're going to ask yourself, is this item a Chromebook? Should it have been in the audit? Is it a Chromebook? If the answer is yes, then you're going to go ahead and record the information for that item in that spreadsheet, because it should have been in the audit, and you'll let Emily then know where that item is, so she can note that it's in the right location. And then if it's not a Chromebook, then you're just going to set it aside. It's not part of the audit. Don't worry about it. So that takes care of our tag verified and our tag not found, as well as our tag not part of the audit scenario. So what happens if I enter that tag again that I entered a little while ago that we verified? So now remember, someone else could be scanning and they could go and start on the shelf I've already scanned. They're going to start to see this tag already entered. So you can see you can have multiple people scanning items and you won't have any duplication, because the system's going to say, hey, wait, nope, that's already been scanned. How are we doing on questions? Oh, I do see a question about logging into the mobile app, and I will show you guys that right as we're closing out. I'll show you how that works. Oh, and Emily says she'll send out directions. Well, that works too. Also, Emily says in the chat, do not worry about recording the condition. Okay, so what we've done here, you've seen what it looks like as you're scanning these items into the room. So those of you who have Chromebooks in a classroom, in a cart or whatever, this is what you're going to see. If they're not issued to students, as you go into each room and you scan, you're going to see those scenarios that we just showed you. Now, if you are completely done with that room scan, completely done, and those of you that have student issued devices, that room where those things are stored, even when you're done with all of the Chromebooks that are local, do not finish the room until you're done with all of your students. So this little finish flag is only when you're done. So this is saying I am completely done scanning items in this room. So if you're doing a room like a classroom, you have a third grade classroom and you scan that room and you know you scanned everything in the room, then you would close it out with the finish flag. Otherwise, when you need to go off and do something else, you can just close this window here, and that would leave that room in a status of in progress. So see where in room 507, it's in progress. I've verified one item. So I'm not going to, I'm going to click on the edit again. I'm not going to hit this finish flag up here until I know I've scanned every single item in the room. And because we're going to come this direction in order to scan for students as well, then you're not going to close out those big storage rooms until you're done with the audit. Okay, so now I'm going to look at the scenarios where that involve the actual students. So Randolph Middle School has this question. I'm confused about the room and assigned to students, since we take home are all of my Chromebooks in the media center. So I would say to you, if your Chromebooks are normally stored in the media center, that's where you're going to do your scan from. And you'll see why here in just a minute. It just kind of makes it flow a little bit easier. You can go student by student.
Hey, Gina, so Marjorie probably, I'm confused about the room. So if you've assigned them to students, they're either assigned to a room or a student. So you'll need to scan the individual Chromebooks assigned to the students as they either present them to you or as you go to their room. The only things that you should have in a room, like your media center, are your spares, your available ones that you haven't issued to anyone, in repair or on their way back from the depot, those types of Chromebooks.
Yeah, so the actual act of scanning, I think, can be confusing in the beginning for that because there's kind of multiple ways to do it. So I'm going to close this room out. I could do student at a time. So I could come into my grid here and find the student that's in front of me and open that particular location and scan the item. That's one way to do that. I scan that one item and I finish and go. It takes a little bit more time. So if you actually have students standing in front of you in a line, like handing you their Chromebooks to be scanned, then if you do it from the room, and I'm going to show you what that looks like now, you'll be able to move a little bit quicker without jumping in and out and having to search for that student's name. So we'll be able to see that screen. It looks like the screenshot that I took earlier that gives you the opportunity to just verify the student without actually going and finding them in here. So we'll kind of see how that looks in this error. So think about the scenario right now. I'm in this particular room. That might be your media center or wherever you store those items that are not issued out. So I'm in this area and I start to scan Chromebooks that are actually assigned to students. So let's see what the system does when I do that. So when I put this guy in right here and scan it, I'm going to get this pop-up that says, hey, this is actually marked as being in the hands of this student, Kevin. So I have the opportunity here to make a decision that allows me to just kind of keep on scanning. So I can say, oh, well, this Chromebook is checked out to Kevin. Which student handed it to me? If the student is Kevin, then we're all good, and we can just click on Verify Tag and scan the next tag. See, I didn't have to go out and look for the student record and edit it and then go. I was able to just tell the system it was correct. So hopefully this will start to clear that confusion about scanning. There's always more than one way to skin the cat, right? So this process will kind of allow you to do it a little quicker. And then if you have to collect the item for some reason, the system will put it right back in the room that we're scanning from. So if I'm standing in the media center and I scan, my next student comes up and that particular laptop, again, hey, this Chromebook should be in the hands of Austin. Is Austin standing in front of you? If it is, then you verify the tag and enter the next one. You can see how quickly you can go through without actually having to search for that student. And if this is helping at all, please let me know. And if it's not, we'll come at it a little bit more. But remember our scenarios where we said, okay, the student in front of us is right, then we verify. The student in front of us is incorrect, and we need to take this Chromebook from them. So say, Austin, this Chromebook that I just scanned is assigned to Austin, but it's not Austin standing in front of me holding the Chromebook. What do we do? So this is kind of a situation that's going to be an internal decision, depending on what you know about your students. But if you decide that the student that handed you the Chromebook, who is not Austin, should not have the Chromebook, then you're going to click on Mark Tag as Misplaced. And basically what that means is you've taken that Chromebook from the student and just placed it in the room you're standing in. And in the audit itself, that Chromebook now is in the status of misplaced. And it's not in the hands of that student that you that handed it to you. So we look at that in another way and say, okay, so the next student that comes up hands me a Chromebook, and I scan it, and it's supposed to be in the hands of Magdalena, but it's not Magdalena standing in front of me. But I decide it's okay that Magdalena has this Chromebook. Say whoever it was assigned to in the system has gone and left the district, and we've reassigned it to Magdalena, but it just didn't happen in the system. Then I can update the tag location and actually put that laptop in the hands of the student that's standing in front of me. So this is not Magdalena, but this student is supposed to have this tag, and I update the tag location. And then I get this little question that says, okay, who is supposed to have this guy? So now I transfer to student, and I find the student. Now, if you happen to have student badges and they have their IDs, then that's kind of easy. But if not, you can always just click on this search. So let's say it's actually Sarah. And her last name is Venter. She's the one that has the laptop. So I can select her now, and I can say that that she's supposed to have this. So so remember, this is an audit, so you want to make your notes as clear as possible, something that will make sense to you later on. And I do see a question about whether there's a hard copy of directions, and yes, there is. There are going to be directions that are sent out to you. You also have this video, and you'll have a cheat sheet for you for your site plan that Emily has been working on. So all of this stuff will be available to you. So remember, in this situation, we scanned a laptop that the system said belonged to Magdalena, but Magdalena was not the student who had the Chromebook. The student who handed it to us was Sarah. So basically what we're doing here is we're saying, let's update the tag location because Sarah should have this Chromebook because it was assigned to her after Magdalena withdrew. And so then we're just going to click on go and move on to the next student. So you're just going to work through every single one of those scenarios. You're just going to scan those items that come in front of you to the location that you're in. And then you're going to close out or complete the scan. Now see my grid, how my overall grid is changing here. So we still have a total of 69 items in the inventory. We have verified 2 of those items. And we've found another 2 that were actually not recorded correctly, but we've fixed that in the process. Notice here also, we went into room 507 to do our scanning, but we also ended up scanning some students that changed them into in progress. So that question about, am I scanning the room or am I scanning the students? It just depends on your situation. If you're having all the students come to you in this big long line, it's faster to go into that room and just scan and let the system tell you which student that particular item is for. And then later on, when you're starting to do those one-offs and you're like, we never did scan for Brandon. So now I have Brandon in front of me, then I can open up Brandon's record and just scan for him. So it's kind of it works both ways situation that you want to set up for doing the best for you at the time. So hopefully that clears up a little bit. Notice now I've only come into room 507 and scanned from there, but if I take a look, at my in progress areas, I do have all of these in progress because of the 4 tags that I scanned. These were actually located in student area. And so it actually started the scan for that student as well. So at the end of my audit, when I think I'm done, then I'm looking, before I approve, I'm using this grid to make sure we got everything. And if I still have 65 out of 69 items missing, then I should be trying to figure out why, right? So I know my site, and I can look at this and go, well, you know, we never actually scanned those shelves in the back corner. Or maybe I'm looking at students who have not been scanned at all. It just depends on how you rearrange things and look at this grid in order to just slowly whittle away. So you take your big process. I'm going to have all the students come to the media center with their Chromebook, and I'm going to scan as they walk through the line. Or I'm going to go from room to room. So you're actually looking at those room locations. I'm going to go from room to room, scan what's in the room, and come back out. Then when I'm done, I'm going to use this grid to find areas that I could maybe go take care of what's missing. So as you go through, you're just watching for this missing number to go down, 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 down until it's as low as you can possibly get it based on what you know about your building. So remember, we can change the grid around. So if there's still 65 items missing, well, where is the biggest concentration of those items? I can just change my grid so that it's in order by the most missing. And so I can go through here. I have these right up in front of me, and I can go, oh, that's right, I never got Dominique because she was out sick that day. So now let's go find Dominique and get her Chromebook scanned and take care of her one-off. So you're just going to work your way through until you get as many as you possibly can. And you're not going to approve that audit until you know that you've done everything at your site. So I think that we need to just kind of take a deep breath here. And I know that Emily's been answering some questions as I've been talking. So I want to make sure that during the process of doing that, you didn't miss something else that you needed that I was saying. Just give you opportunity to ask further questions, or maybe Emily, you want to clarify something that came up during the question.
So this is Jim, I'm with Emily. We just had a question. Normally when you want to finalize a room, you click the pencil to open that room back up. Once you're satisfied with all of your scans, you click the finalize checkered flag to finalize that room. But for items assigned to students, how do you finalize, if you have scanned it and it's verified, how do you then go and finalize that student?
Okay, so we're going to take a kind of a different approach to these items as we go. And you can do it the same way. If you say you run across a student and you scan him and you know you've taken care of him, you can finalize him here as well, complete scan. Also, the process of clicking on approve audit will complete all of those locations that haven't been set as complete. So when I go in and say approve, the system's going to take that as a, let me show you the message here.
Please finalize everything.
It basically says, hey, you're about to approve that all scanning is complete. So all locations in the status of new or in progress will be set to scan complete when you approve the audit. So you can do a mix and match. If I walk into room 10 and I scan everything in that room, and I know I've scanned everything in that room, and I know I've got everything, I can finalize that room. And it's probably a good idea to do so. because especially if you have multiple teams scanning, or if you're scanning across multiple days, it kind of gives you a no, we've been there. Just the rule of thumb is don't ever hit that finish flag unless you're 100% sure that you have scanned everything in that particular area you're in, whether that's a student or a room. And then at the very end, you can go through and just approve the audit, and that will finish off the rest. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Thank you.
There was a question there about lost, stolen items. If you happen to scan an item that is listed in the system as lost or stolen, you will get a message very similar to, I wonder if I have an example of that. You will get a message very similar to the one that we just had about the student location. Let me see if I can find an example, but it will give you the opportunity to record that. No, I don't have an example, but let's plug in one anyway. So let's say I'm in this room and I plug in something. So you're going to get a message like this, but instead of saying that that tag was marked with this student, it will tell you this tag was listed as stolen, or this tag was listed as lost, and it'll give you the opportunity to say, no, we got it. Because sometimes we do have things in the system that are recorded as missing or stolen or whatever, and the audit finds it. So you'll be able to say, nope, I got it, or I want to update the location on this tag, which will change the status.
I don't understand the question from Mint Hill Middle. Despite repeated reminders about reporting lost Chromebooks, I still have teachers tell the kids to just borrow the Chromebook of a student who's absent. Will the number of Chromebooks found hurt us? If this is not a take-home school, then all the Chromebooks should be there. If they're assigned, you'll have to say this Chromebook is not assigned to this student. You'll have to, put it back in the room.
So in your system,
you have any
so are those particular Chromebooks actually issued to the student in TIPWeb IT, or are they assigned to a room and then the teacher just tells the students which ones are theirs?
The latter.
This is Tracy at Mint Hill. Just to clarify, like I said, I've got teachers who will say, oh, just go grab another Chromebook instead of reporting it as lost. So I have found out about Chromebooks that have been missing for 4 weeks, 3 weeks, and there's this whole chain of kids using the wrong Chromebooks. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, when I'm looking at the totals at the bottom where it says verified and found, if we go to do this and 50 Chromebooks are found because the wrong kid, is that going to be come back on me?
Okay, so I'm gonna clarify one thing right now, just because this happens a lot. Audits are kind of scary. Just know that the audit isn't about getting anybody in trouble. It's just about making sure we have what we think we have. So no, I don't see it as coming back on you, but are those Chromebooks issued to the students in TIPWeb, or are they just assigned to the room?
They are issued to individual students.
And then they just store them back on the cart before they go home.
Correct.
So I think what happens at that point, and this might get a little hairy in this situation. It just kind of depends. But if the student who's using the Chromebook is in the class, I mean, if it's lost, it's not going to be there, right? So it's going to end up being missing. And so it should end up being missing from the student it was issued to begin with, regardless of who's using what Chromebook. So I would just say, and Emily, and you guys this may evolve as you go, but I would say as a start, you scan the Chromebook, and if the student that pops up is in the classroom, you call it verified. So it's like, this is supposed to be in Johnny's hands and not Julie's hands. But in the end of the day, it's going back into the cart. So if Johnny's in the room, we're going to verify it. Now, if for some reason the student pops up or is either not enrolled anymore, then maybe you can go ahead and say, let's update the location, because Johnny's no longer in the district and Julie's now using the Chromebook. So we'll go ahead and update it to Julie. Otherwise, as long as there's 30 Chromebooks and 30 kids and the names kind of match, we're not going to worry about it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So like I said, that might evolve a little bit, and it might get a little, but I wouldn't count it as bad just because, one kid picked up the wrong Chromebooks for that day. As long as they're all in the classroom, then I would call it okay. And I would ask the teacher to try to keep up with that a little better. Anyone else want to ask a question? And if you don't want to type it, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yep.
This is Audie from Hornets Nest. My question was earlier about the engineers that come out for support. When they say, do we need their help with the audit, what are they going to be doing actually? Just helping us scan?
This is Jim. Miss Emily had to step out for a few seconds. The intricacies haven't been spelled out just yet, but most likely it would be assisting in the scanning of the devices at your site as their ticket workload permits. Now, of course, if they have, P1, P2 tickets, those would, of course, take priority over assisting during the audits. But Miss Emily is back and can correct me if I'm wrong, but Hornets Nest was re-asking the question about engineer assistance as far as what their role would be. And I just let her know it would most likely be just the scanning portion.
Yes.
And then P1, P2 is where you came in.
Yes. That sounds perfect. Just reach out to Danielle Gary.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
And that question kind of made me think of something else about, I love it when things just come in and then just go right back out the other side. About having the engineers or the technicians that usually take tickets roaming around your school doing scanning. That's something in your communication. Let me see, we need to get somebody here. That gets something in your communication needs to include the fact that, hey, when we're doing the audit, please remember that we're there to do the audit. Because we tend to, as soon as a technician walks in the building, they get dogpiled, oh, I have this problem, I have this problem, I have this problem, I have this problem. And that will just really slow your scanning down. So as you're kind of letting your folks know we're doing an audit. Come up with a way that where they have, it's very clear to them when I come into your room to do the audit, we're just going to do the audit. We can't take work orders. So please, don't sidetrack us too badly. And it's kind of hard to say that with a good customer service in mind, but we do want to have the least amount of disruption, and we want to get in and get out with this scanning as much as possible. So find a way to kind of funnel that stuff that just tends to happen off to the side a little bit, and make sure everybody understands that during the audit, that's what you're there for. Yes, and I know Emily already answered, but Marjorie, most definitely those Chromebooks that go home, they should be in the hands of the student you're expecting them to be in. So that's something you guys are going to need to have a plan for, right? Because you're going to have those students that show up with Chromebooks that were not issued to them. Are you going to take them away? If you know they're not supposed to have that one, are you going to take them away? And that's something that you probably want to also communicate to your stakeholders when you're starting to talk about the audit and how it's going to happen. Okay, so are there any further questions? Emily, is there anything else that you want me to go over?
Can you go over the mobile app?
Oh, yes, I certainly can. Okay, so for the mobile app, when you log into TIPWeb IT, you have this button down here on the far left in the bottom, Mobile IT Setup. So the first thing that you're going to do is whatever your phone is, whether it's Apple or an Android, you're going to go to the store. So go out to the Google Play Store or go out to the App Store and find the TIPWeb IT RFID app. I don't have a picture of that, but the newest version is TIPWeb IT RFID. And even if you're not using RFID, that's the app that's got the newest version, is that one. So that's the one you want to use. Once you get that installed on your phone, so you install that first from the store, then you log into the system with your user ID, click on Mobile IT Setup, and you're going to scan this QR code right from your screen. You're going to go ahead and launch the application and then scan that code. That's going to have your login and everything, so that when you run the application, you'll be logged in.
Hey, Gina.
Mm-hmm.
We are SSO, so I don't know that this mobile app works for us.
Oh. That's interesting. Have you tried it?
Oh, yeah. We have. I'm going to try it right now, but they did create us some QR codes just for audits, but I mean, I don't have enough for everyone, so that's why I was curious to see if this is.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that it didn't work with SSO. See, I learn something every day too.
I'm going to try it right now.
Yeah, we haven't tried in probably 4 or 5 months. But what we found was we were able to start the app, but being able to enter into an audit, none of that would work until Hayes created these little special QR codes with just generic logins on their side to our particular database. So it's not going through our SSO. It doesn't require any kind of sign-on or anything. But that does still give us access to the TIPWeb Charlotte Mecklenburg SD version of TIPWeb.
So it's still not working. I don't know.
Okay.
It should work even though you're on a training site, right?
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't work for us. So we might just have to, if everyone's listening, we cannot use the mobile app for this.
So you'll want to, I'm sorry about that. I wasn't aware. And I was going to chat with somebody who could tell me, and it looks like they're having a big meeting because nobody is available.
Well, if something changes, let me know and I'll send out.
Okay. Okay. And maybe, I don't know if I'll talk to them also about the QR codes they made you. Maybe they'll be able to use those. I'll find out what I can find out here. Huh. Okay. So, are there any other questions? Anybody have anything? And you can log into more than one computer at a time. You can. I guess I wasn't clear with that. You can most definitely log into more than one computer at a time. I would just say everyone should be, by best practice, using their own user ID when they do that. You can also use 2 different browsers on one machine. So you could log into the system with Chrome and then use Explorer for the second browser and be able to log into 2 sessions. Also, there's a question there about, will there be written instruction handout for this? Let me show you guys something in the application that will definitely help. And then you also need to marry that information with the in specific scenarios for your district. But if you are if you are in TIPWeb IT, up here by your profile under help, that brings you into an online kind of help documentation process. And if you go over here into audits, you're going to see exactly what audits, how audits work, how you would finalize. Oh, let's look here at the site view. Sorry, go to site view first and then audits from there. And you're going to see exactly how to conduct the audit, which these are step-by-step instructions on how you do what we just went through. You're going to be completing a district requested audit. How do you complete a scan of the room? If you accidentally close something, you are able to reopen it. How you would be going about approving it. And the reconciliation, which is going to be actually at the district level. So here are some in-application instructions. Just please remember that you have your special instructions as well that go into how you're dealing with each particular scenario in your audit. And these are going to be generalized, generic instructions. And as Emily wrote that there would be directions also added to the Canvas system. So Emily, do you want to summarize your next steps and what you're going to do and what they would be able to expect from you from here?
Okay, so over the winter break they were having coming up, I'm going to make sure all the information has been updated on the Audits tab in the Canvas course. and you have your cheat sheet, and you have a copy of the Google Sheet. So when you arrive back to school on January 6th, on that Monday, you will see the audit open. You'll have a link on your dashboard. You can click that, or you can go to the audits at the top and find the audit. But I will send out a reminder email of the name of the audit so you can look for it. And it opens up on Monday, January 6th. Of course, in the meantime, you know, if you have any questions, please email me. We'll work out the scanner situation, and anything else that you might have that comes up. I think that's it. You did a great job, Gina. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I know it's kind of tough when there's so many people in one meeting, but I appreciate your time, and good luck on your audit. It's going to be worth it. Emily, you know how to get hold of support, so holler at us if you need anything. And everybody, enjoy your break. Have a Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Thank you, ma'am. Same to you.
Windsor Park is now exiting.
Groovy.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Hey, Emily, if you're still on, you have a question in the chat. As far as Hayes is concerned, that video should be available within the next 48 hours. We'll try to make it a little faster because I know you guys are on a tight timeline.
Philip O'Berry
is now exiting.